Welcome to Rumbo Minero. I'm Cesar Campos, and with me is our fantastic producer, Miguel Zavala. Miguel, how are you enjoying this lovely day we have today? Greetings and a warm welcome to our show.
Hello, Cesar. It's wonderful to see you again.
This is a chance to assess the official presidential message delivered by Mrs. Dina Boluarte Zegara, which is her final one. In accordance with the Constitution, but it has left many disappointments, many mistakes, and also many confusions. To address this, we are going to analyze this message in collaboration with respected individuals who grasp the situation in our country's economic and mining sectors. The name of Jaime de Althaus consists of 17 characters. A well-known political analyst, anthropologist, and journalist with a prominent reputation.
Yes, Cesar. Carlos Gálvez will be here too. He used to be the president and director of the National Society of Mining, Oil and Energy.
As usual, José Gonzáles will be joining us live from Wall Street, New York in the upcoming edition of Rumbo Minero. Stay tuned for this and much more in our latest report. Let's move on to the next segment now.
In her latest message to the nation, President Dina Boluarte presented the roadmap for her government regarding the mining sector. The announcement included 61 initiatives with an estimated investment of $65 billion, featuring prominent projects like Zafranal and Pampa de Pongo. He noted that 134 authorizations for exploration and exploitation are being evaluated, exceeding $6 billion. Regarding formalization, he reported on the establishment of a technical table to regularize 31,560 registrations with the participation of 16 state entities, unions, and the Ombudsman's office. In this context, he highlighted the necessity of a new MAPE law that will establish a fund for mining incentives aimed at miners in the process of formalization. Regarding illegal mining, he announced the implementation of the National Strategy for the Reduction and Interdiction of Illegal Mining by 2030. Within this program, PATAS conducted over 1,140 patrols, resulting in criminal organizations suffering financial losses amounting to 181 million soles. He pointed out that this plan will be enforced in the country's mining regions. Consequently, the task ahead is for the executive to implement the projects and commitments that have been declared, which are crucial for the growth of the sector and the regions.
Our report highlights the statements of Mrs. Dina Boluarte Zegara, the constitutional president of the Republic, regarding economic management and mining, showcasing her perspective on these crucial subjects. 7 mentions, barely and very generically, about the issue of informal mining. The process of formalizing mining will be completed without specifying the details of how it will be done. As previously announced, we are happy to serve as the host for a discussion with Jaime de Althaus, a prominent political analyst and anthropologist, and a journalist companion regarding this topic. Jaime, it's a pleasure to have you here once again.
No, thank you, Cesar, for the kind invitation. It's truly my pleasure.
The overarching topic, specifically, Jaime, we will first discuss your thoughts on whether there has been a perspective regarding the economic line, beyond the things we celebrate at the beginning of his speech, of his message, of having definitively broken with everything that was the statist past, not only Pedro Castillo, but also his obviously authoritarian and coup-driven will. That's appealing, and it looks like she is fully distancing herself from the economic control frameworks. About economic control, but what do you think overall?
Well, I agree with you on that. Don't you think in that the best part of her speech might be the claim in good measure that she makes to public opinion regarding the need for recognition, that she walked away from that project, dismissed that project. Let's say it was a project that caused division in the country, that put the country against each other, which sought the Constituent Assembly and everything else, and confirmed democracy, the rule of law, the Republic's Constitution, and everything else. What she said, created stability, and as a result shared a piece of information that was new to me and seemed interesting, is that Peru's public debt has decreased in the last 2 years from over 33% of GDP to 31% of GDP. I was under the impression that it continued to rise as it has been increasing since the pandemic. Don't you think? We were at 26 or 27, and now we've climbed to 35.
Therefore, our deficit amounted to over 3.5%. Did we reach that target, correct?
That's correct. Therefore, it's great news that the public debt has seen a reduction. And we have even had a fiscal surplus for the first time in a long time in the first quarter, right? Sure, that fiscal surplus won't stick around, but let's assume it aids the government, even if the president claimed otherwise, saying he stated that we were going to experience a fiscal deficit, which I believe was estimated at 2.8. Now that it is known we will actually have a deficit of 2.2, it indicates that it won't be necessary. Changing the fiscal rule is a welcomed update, bringing positive impact. Why? Because incomes have risen. Doesn't 14% in the initial quarter or semester appear to be quite significant, don't you think? It's a lot. No, it's not due to a reduction in spending. The issue is that spending continues to grow, correct? And there is a report from the Ministry of Economy and Finance sent to Congresswoman Ruth Luque, I believe. That shows the legislative proposals from Congress in recent years. The potential fiscal impact of 405 billion sols amounts to approximately 405 billion sols, which is a ticking fiscal time bomb, right? So, without a doubt, while we are currently within it, we would still be within the limits of the fiscal rule for this year. Over time, we are creating a fiscal time bomb, and that is really worrying, isn't it?
Jaime, a significant point that stands out in President Dina Boluarte's discourse. It pointed out we have one of the currencies more solid, right? Well, he also pointed out that we are facing an inflation rate, which was at, the figure is 2% less than in countries like Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, and even Chile, with inflation still projected for that year. Much smaller. But is this a government achievement, or is it one from the BCR?
Basically, of the two, right? Of the two, I would say that the Central Reserve Bank plays a fundamental role, right? Luckily, we have that Central Reserve Bank. As for Julio Velarde, we are unsure about who will be in the next government. A presidential change is on the horizon. We ought to closely monitor the person selected for the position, don't you think? However, this is the interesting news that I came across while reading in a macro consult report by Elmer Cuba. Peru is again the nation of Latin America with the biggest growth. This year it would be the country with the most growth in Latin America and with the lowest inflation. Isn't it an amazing combination? Achieving maximum growth while keeping inflation at a minimum. The potential for growth lies in the fact that even a 3% improvement can have a significant impact. It's not about how well we are doing, but rather how poorly others are performing, don't you think? Growing at a rate of 3% does not accurately represent the present mineral prices, which are actually higher now than they were during Alan Garcia's administration. We ought to be experiencing growth rates akin to those of Alan Garcia, which were 8 or 9% each year. We must enhance growth and draw in a significantly greater amount of investment. And in the speech, there was no mention, for example, of something very important. He mentioned that the government had given the green light to approximately $13 billion, with $11 billion allocated specifically for mining projects. However, he did not mention the need to cut down on paperwork, permits, trimming, and bureaucracy. They have already forgotten the unique digital window, for example, which was supposed to simplify things as it managed the simplification of permissions and obligations. That is fundamental to attract investment. We have 61,000. The portfolio is $61 billion in mining investment projects. It is being held back because no, it cannot be executed. Primarily because of the permit and bureaucracy problems, don't you think? So that is key. This change must be made. I don't know what the Ministry of Energy and Mines is waiting for to produce it.
You, like Us Jaime, expressed approval of the executive's action, showing satisfaction for this important step taken. In the figure of the Ministry of Energy and Mines with Minister Jorge Montero, having defined it all clearly, right? There are 50,550 excluded after 4 years who have a Reinfo that serves them for water, simply for the exercise that is no longer informal but even illegal of the mining, and 3,550 or 60 pairs to formalize. This was the aim of the technical meeting that was formed. But surprisingly, the pressure from these minority groups suddenly shows up. Let's revisit each case. All right, let's take another look at each case to see what is supposed to have been noted, shall we? Because nobody just randomly decided to put in 50,000 just because I want to, right? Is plain. This has resulted in a sense of discomfort or uncertainty at the very least. You can see that there will truly be a commitment to wrap this up, beginning with the formalization of the 30,000. On artisanal and small-scale mining can be sensible, viable, and that you can adapt to a formalization process. It is important that any idea is both reasonable and feasible enough to be adapted into a formalization process for successful implementation.
I strongly believe that on this topic, the government holds a firm conviction, which seems to be the only one they have. They are currently putting into action a carefully planned, smart approach, let's call it a policy, in the implementation phase. Both the fight against illegal mining, which a Supreme Decree was approved for, and the formalization of the concept The fight against illegal mining included getting rid of 50,000 reinforcements and excluding another 50,000 reinforcements, which has been a decisive and crucial step in which I understand the government will remain firm. And in fact, they were given 15 days for reconsideration. And around 2,600 of those 50,000 submitted their reconsideration request. But that deadline has already passed, and finally only a little over 2,000 have submitted. The reconsideration is currently being reviewed for processing, and there is a possibility that some or many of them will be approved. They are going to be reintegrated into the, let's say, the formalization process. No? All others have been ruled out already without any chance of being reconsidered or included again. Hey. And I understand that there is a very clear decision regarding that. When it comes to setting it in stone, one could argue that the ministry is effectively putting into action an intelligent plan. They are segmenting by types of situation. To the 31,000, there are those who already have titles. There are some who have titles and others who already have concession contracts. There are about 3,500 or 4,000 of them. Those who are present, those who already have titles or concession contracts, that is much easier. Approximately 7,000 to 7,500 concessions have expired, necessitating a congressional law to empower the Ministry of Economy, Energy and Mines to issue the concession. They will present that law project soon. And to put it simply, there are several, though I'm not sure how many. There are roughly 3,800 that are for processing, meaning they have processing plants. It is a different problem. They are not in concessions, no. The remaining amount is around 15,600. They are in third-party concessions, but of those, 70% are in concessions of small miners. There should also be incentives in the MAPI law that is approved to make this easier, right?
If the proposed plan ensures no damage to the environment and adheres to labor standards, it can proceed. It's essential to prioritize these factors moving forward. They must adhere to the credit access guidelines that the state will provide as well.
Indeed, they are indeed going to establish a mining fund aimed at those who are already formalized to make it easier for them to access credit and technology, legal assistance, all that, right? For the enhancement of quality, correct? That's incredible. Facing resistance from regional governments, the regional governments do not want to hand over. The official files for formalization. So the ones that need to be formalized, which are in these big ones, especially those that are also in other MAPI systems, in MAPI 4, in MAPI concessions. No, they are disobeying a law, they are against the law. I don't know why the ministry doesn't engage in a bit of politics with this. That is, to call upon the Confemins, summoning the powerful spirits of Fenata Fena 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 Marpe, and urging the cooperation of regional governing bodies. The central government aims to legalize their actions, yet they lack the necessary documentation to proceed with formalization.
This is a matter we postponed, Jaime, to have a conversation with you since it relates to the shortcomings of the national decentralization process and the specific powers. The ability of these regional governments to hold on to these files and not submit them to the Ministry of Energy poses a significant issue. Thank you for your presence, Jaime. We appreciate you being here with us.
No, thank you for the invitation.
Of course, Jaime de Althaus, political analyst, anthropologist, and also journalist, was with us. We are going to take a break and we will return. We are connecting with our America mining sector, which is closely associated with Wall Street in New York. José Gonzáles, the international editor of Rumbo Minero magazine, is currently there. Can you provide an update on José's whereabouts?
It's a pleasure to meet you, Cesar. I thoroughly enjoy our weekly gatherings together.
Very well. This week we have the announcement that the meeting with the United States has gone on for a longer duration. China's relationship has been extended to include resolve the problems in trade tensions by following the example set by the US, who has successfully tackled these issues with the European Union, and Japan too. Can you update us on the situation with China?
It is like that, Cesar? Following the third meeting held between the representatives of the government of the United States, specifically the Trump administration and the Chinese government, well, an extension has been established to reach the terms for 90 more days. Initially, to come to an agreement between China and the United States. No major breakthroughs were announced in Stockholm, and yet everything returns. There has been a lot of reservation, but everything returns to a discussion of permanent magnets for semiconductors, and that will be the discussion between both parties. And they are taking a break from each other, just as it was mentioned previously. The significance of rare earths and permanent magnets for the US industry, as well as semiconductors for China, is crucial. The European Union also relies heavily on these resources, indicating their importance in global markets. The most significant commercial accord given the sheer magnitude of the European Union. It is important to take into account the annual international trade volumes, which amount to a staggering $1.7 trillion. With 800 million people across both nations, accounting for 44% of global GDP and 27 countries, 74 trade relations, and there she took one regarding what Ursula von der Leyen spoke of as a rebalancing to establish sustainability, a certainty in uncertain times, and stability and predictability with a rate set at 15%. Europe aimed for 10, Trump had threatened 30, they agreed on 15%. Germany is not satisfied. Satisfied with its car exports, France is very dissatisfied because there are several items that remain undefined. We are discussing items of 0 by 0 that are not very well established. The tariffs applied to steel and aluminum are still at half the price. Discussions emerge about switching to payments. Future will reveal our decision. There are some commitments from Europe to buy energy in the United States for $750 billion that Europe does not want to reaffirm. Japan, who also accepted a 15% tariff, is reconsidering $550 billion in investments following claims by the US, impacting their decision-making process significantly. President Trump's decision to introduce tariffs on Japan is projected to generate savings of $67.7 billion for the nation. These tariffs, varying between 15 and 20%, are expected to bring about substantial economic benefits for Japan. Exports of rice. President Trump's decision to adjust tariffs from 15 to 20% is expected to save Japan a significant amount, approximately $67.7 billion. Well, the subject of copper is what is coming next, and Chile is asking in its direct negotiations with the American government that copper be excluded from the agreement. The tariffs imposed are lacking in logic as they are applied on inelastic demand, resulting in diminished competitiveness for the US. This is especially apparent when the US is sourcing copper from its neighboring allies. We will see how that progresses. The price of copper remains at $5.56, having dropped from its record of $5.90. Stable at the support level of $5,600. The results are not bad for the economy, according to the International Monetary Fund. It has just updated its figures, managing to improve the growth rates to an equal 3% for this current year after, that it had foreseen in its previous update a growth below that 3%. The United States growing at 1.9%, Latin America at 2.2%, Peru at 2.84%. The mining industry should not be significantly disrupted by these reports to maintain mineral extraction dynamics.
Perfect, Jose. I repeat, because we have 2 minutes left for the block. Could you please elaborate on the quotations for us of gold? What are the expectations for the remainder of the third quarter?
Gold has been dropping, Miguel, over the last 3 weeks. It's trading at levels of 3,300 an ounce, which is its support level. These tariff agreements between the United States and its counterparts have reduced geopolitical risks, thereby alleviating pressure on the increase of gold prices. Gold quotes: "The Federal Reserve shouldn't raise rates, or perhaps it should lower rates in September, which doesn't align with gold prices as the macroeconomic indicators coming from the North Americans are arriving with good tidings." The second quarter growth was just announced at 3% after declining 0.5%. A slowdown is expected in the second half. Gold should maintain these support levels of $3,300 an ounce.
Thanks a lot, Jose, for your ongoing support. Looking forward to staying in touch next week as usual.
Delighted, always.
It was Jose Gonzáles, the international editor for our publication, Rumbo Minero, which you are now able to access completely free of charge through the internet. Going to www.rumbominero.com. All the discussions we've had with Jose Gonzáles, including his contributions and insights, along with other relevant topics in the mining sector, are available in our publication. A pause, and we return. As mentioned before, Our distinguished guest for this second Rumbo Minero interview is Mr. Carlos Gálvez Pinillos, who previously served as the president and director of the National Society of Mining, Oil and Energy sector. Carlos, it's always a pleasure to have you on our show.
Thanks for inviting me, Cesar Miguel. Always a pleasure. With you.
We require your focus as the former chairman of the National Society of Mining, Petroleum and Energy, of the aspects that President Dina Boluarte has touched upon in these specific sectors in general. I'm referring to everything that specifically includes the subjects that the company specializes in: hydrocarbons, energy, Petroperu, mining and oil. Please tell us more.
Yes. Various aspects that I believe deserve attention should be highlighted. The initial aspect, unrelated to mining operations, is the first point mentioned. But is very important is the role that Mrs. Boluarte played on December 7th when she assumed office and ensured the country was not left adrift. I believe that is a very important element to highlight. Of course, it didn't have to go back 5,000 years of history, but that is a point that must be highlighted. The second point is that it has become a common occurrence to attribute to themselves the positive effects or the management strategies of the central bank, and that
Not the first time.
it's becoming a usual occurrence rather than a one-time event, and I think that's not helpful. The third aspect is that it's astonishing that at a time of super cycle of metal prices, which explain over 60% of all of our exports, we are, with a growth that is barely perceptible, which isn't terrible, about 3% or so, when we should be seeing growth of 6% or more. So here, there's an issue that needs to be highlighted. Another point is that for that same reason, it's astonishing that we haven't already adjusted to the levels of a maximum fiscal deficit of 1 percentage point. I believe that is completely unprecedented, because if not during the super cycle of prices, when will one adjust the fiscal accounts? When will you do it? The other issue that unfortunately has not been discussed with the depth it deserves, at least as I would have hoped, because it is one of the tasks pending until the end of his government, the matter of legislation for small-scale and artisanal mining opportunities, because that issue, the executive will not be the one to decide it, but as head of state, it was his responsibility to indicate what the goal was that we wanted to reach. More or less, things will be reflected in the law with or alongside Congress, but the view, that of the President of the Republic, is absolutely fundamental. And the last topic that I think is also, this matter was left unresolved, is Petroperu's topic, as it cannot be left unattended. The topic of Petroperu arises as we are just about 12 months from a government transition, and we cannot hand over that ticking time bomb to the next administration.
A consensus among many specialists, including Carlos, is that the president has put forth a set of projects that she intends to implement in the future. But without saying how and the time frame. And points like the situation of the 50,000 excluded records from Reinfos have also not been addressed. And also the issue of bureaucracy and permits to promote mining investments. The mining investments. What about these points? Should I have dug deeper?
Undoubtedly, this is one of the subjects that had to be addressed. When I refer to where the law for small-scale mining and artisanal mining will lead us, we are actually talking about what the solution is for that segment, for that community of people who are on the right or wrong path, but that they require a solution. And we must tell them how we are going to solve the problem. And there are the 50,000 these reinforcements that haven't been fixed. The other matter is truly what initiatives will be supported with timelines. And that implies, as it pertains to paperwork and permits, this obsession, when are we going to cut it and how, has mentioned to some progress that has been made, but that it does not quite qualify as a significant deregulatory upheaval, does it? And there we must go deeper. We must eliminate unnecessary actions, activities, or permits that serve no purpose or are redundant in order to improve efficiency and effectiveness.
And we must consider, Carlos, what is preventing the substantial improvement, let's say, in attracting mining investment, which used to be confined to bureaucracy. Contributing to social conflict remains a concern today. Isn't that right? The element of illegal mining activity, and the latest Fraser Institute report says that, however, it implies that we have enhanced our appeal for investments. What are your expectations, regardless in any scenario, about our progress? Or what would you suggest, what would you advise that the government should do in this last electoral year, where bureaucracy holds projects, that she hides it in a drawer while waiting for the new government? What is it that must be pushed with much dedication and much conviction?
The first major signal is, what do we do about illegal or informal mining? Because it must be removed from the concessioned areas to be able to develop the projects in the conditions that the nation requires from investors. At the very least, it must be cleared from the area. First of all. Secondly, what we had mentioned, simplification of procedures. But the simplification of processes is truly necessary. We can't just play pretend. We need to take action. And if we don't meet those terms, and let's not offer political or social conditions of non-conflictivity, it's going to be very difficult. This is transversal to all activities, to the mining sector and the tourism sector, for example, because we are facing the repercussions. We are the only South American country not to have restored pre-pandemic visitor numbers due to safety concerns. This is the precise location where we need to address these problems.
By the way, Carlos, concerning the topic of illegal mining, one of the things the President announced was the implementation of the national strategy aimed at reduction and interaction of illegal mining up to 2030. It should be noted then that for the government, what has been done in Patas has been a complete success, and this will also be replicated in other highly conflictive areas where this is involved. Illegal mining, it is so much so, that is to say, right now Patas serves as the example of truly modern and legal mining operations right now, or are we simply covering up the gap temporarily?
I believe activities have been developed in Patas that had to be carried out, but are not sustainable. I believe that the presence of the armed forces and the police in a joint manner, in a unified command, this was fundamental. But on the other hand, we are seeing and we are witnesses, and you yourselves have shown how certain illegal miners have obstructed the road right where the offices or surveillance posts of Sukamek and Sunat have been established, of all the organizations that have come together. That is unacceptable. That must be removed. And those individuals who have behaved improperly need to be punished. We cannot allow a crime without punishment.
Certainly, Carlos, it's always a delight to listen to you. Your insightful thoughts and input are greatly valued by our Rumbo Minero viewers as they are consistently engaging and enriching our discussions. We'll try again next time to ensure your success.
Thank you once again, Cesar. I appreciate your help.
Carlos Gálvez Pinillos, ex-president and director of the National Mining, Oil and Energy Society, was here with us. Now let's go to the block with Iván Arenas, Mining and Society.
As you are aware, one of the measures introduced by the government has been remove or cancel over 50,560 suspended re-ins. Let's clarify. this detail and another figure. The other number is 31,000. 560 reinforcements that are still active. We will explain it well, because I think this is one of the great sticking points about the latest protests that arose against the government's decisions. Referring to 50,560 reinfos, they are talking about suspended reinforcements. These reinforcements, nearly 42,000 reinsurances have been suspended from the year 2020 onwards, meaning they haven't been managed for over 4 years. To change from being in a state of being suspended to being in a state of being activated. As mentioned, focus on this figure, 50,560 re-inspections suspended, with 42,000 of them being significant, mainly from 2020. The government has voided them, and I believe it is a correct decision because the government is being honest. It makes the data clear. What exactly has occurred? It seems the government has left around 31,000 reinforcements still in effect. And watch this number. Out of over 31,500 reinforcements, about 3,000 reinforcements are suspended for less than a year. Also note this number. More than 3,000 reinforcements are suspended for less than a year, and yet the government has given them the opportunity to move from suspended to active. Hence, they are part of the 30,000. The government needs to expedite with the formalization of these more than 31,000 reinforcements, because right here, in this specific number, the camouflage of illegal production continues. In any case, the government needs to possess not just the will, but also the political determination to begin a swift formalization initiative by the end of December. Otherwise, there will again be reasons and arguments to say an extension is needed not for the 80,000 troops, just for those 31,000 reinfos. Hope the government this time will keep its promise. See you next week.
We have reached the end of our program, Miguel, and I believe those were two very interesting interviews with contributions from both guests. Jaime de Althaus, who is completely confident that the government's will can ultimately prevail to ensure the formalization process. The process which started a couple of weeks back may now become a reality.
Indeed, Cesar and our guests have concurred that several significant aspects were omitted from the address, specifically concerning the complex administrative procedures and red tape, the permitting process, the issue of mining formalization. What about these 50,000 reinfos? Tia Maria, another significant project set to begin construction this year, has been overlooked in our discussion. Also, the topic of social conflict remains unaddressed. 2.
We are looking at the Fraser report, which is once again highlighting Peru for foreign investors. Specifically, I am talking about the mining opportunities it offers. My name is Cesar Campos, and alongside Miguel Zavala, we have been the hosts of this program. We look forward to welcoming you next week, just like we always do. Thank you.